Dear friends, English Literature, Introduction to Drama, Arms and the Man by George Bernard Shaw. Brief questions with answers. Brief questions 52 to 100. Question 52. What glory is there in killing wretched fugitives? Who says this and what type of person he or she is? Answer. Raina says this. She is soft-hearted. She thinks that there is nothing heroic in killing the helpless runaway Serbs. Question 53. This is the happiest night of my life. Why the particular night is the happiest for Raina? Answer. The particular night is the happiest night for Raina because it has brought to her the good news of Sergius' victory at the Battle of Slivnica. But ironically, this night will prove to be the happiest in here because this night she will meet Bluntschli, who will marry her later on and make her happy. Question 54. What does Raina do with a portrait of Sergius in her bedroom? Answer. She worships the portrait of Sergius as a priestess worship an idol and addresses the portrait as the hero of her soul. Question 55. How did Bluntschli enter Raina's bedroom? Answer. Bluntschli enters Raina's bedroom through one of the windows which has no bolt. Question 56. How does Bluntschli warn Raina when she asks him about his identity? Answer. When Raina asks him about his identity, he warns her by saying, "Don't call out or you will be shot." Question 57. How does Bluntschli assure Raina? Answer. He assures her by saying, "Be good and no harm will happen to you." Question 58. Why does Bluntschli enter Raina's bedroom? Answer. Being chased by the Bulgarians, he enters Raina's bedroom to take shelter and save his life. Question 59. Some soldiers I know are afraid to die. Who says this and to whom and why? Answer. Raina says this to the man Bluntschli, who enters her bedroom at night. Raina says this because the man who enters her room does not intend to get killed, though himself a soldier. Question 60. This is better weapon than the revolver. Why says this? What is the better weapon? Why? Answer. The man Bluntschli, who enters into Raina's bedroom, says this to the man. The possession of Raina's cloak is a better weapon than the revolver because without wearing the cloak, Raina will not appear to anyone in her nightdress and inform anybody that he is hiding in her bedroom. Question 61. It is not the weapon of a gentleman. Who says this and to whom? What is not the weapon of a gentleman? Answer. Raina says this to the man Bluntschli. To Raina, taking away a lady's cloak and using it as a weapon of a protection for himself is not the weapon of a gentleman. Question 62. If you don't, they will break it all down. Who says this and to whom? What does the speaker mean here? Answer. Loka says this to Raina. Loka here means that if Raina doesn't open the door, the Bulgarian soldiers will break it open. Question 63. When does the man Bluntschli give Raina her cloak? Answer. When the Bulgarian soldiers were knocking at the door to open it, the man gave her cloak to her. Question 64. The first man in will find out who is the speaker. What does he hint here? Question. Answer. The man Bluntschli, who enters Raina's bedroom, says this. He hints that the first Bulgarian soldier who will enter the room will face death before he, Bluntschli, is killed. Question 65. How does Raina save the man Bluntschli from the hands of the Bulgarian soldiers? Answer. Raina saves the man Bluntschli from the hands of the Bulgarian soldiers by hiding him behind the curtains. Question 66. 9 soldiers out of 10 are born fools. Who is the speaker? Why does he say so? Answer: the man who enters Raina's bedroom at night says this. Here he means that most of the soldiers are very foolish persons. He says this to encourage Raina that she can easily deceive the Bulgarian soldiers who are about to enter her room for search. Question 67. A devil of a fight. Who is the speaker? What does the speaker mean here? Answer: the man Bluntschli who enters Raina's bedroom at night is the speaker. He means that if he is found out by his enemy soldiers, he will fight with them like a terrible demon. Question 68. Gracious lady, 1,000 pardons. Who begs pardon and why? Answer: the Russian officer in Bulgarian uniform fails to discover anyone in Raina's bedroom or in her balcony, so he begs pardon of Raina. Question 69. How does Loka understand that Raina has hit somebody in the room? Answer: seeing a revolver on the ottoman, Loka understands that Raina had hit somebody in the room. Question 70. A miss is as good as a mile. Who says this and why? Answer: the man Bluntschli says this. When the Russian officer fails to discover him in Raina's bedroom and leaves the room, the man says this to mean that his escape was by a narrow margin, which was as good as that of a mile. Question 71. Your servant to the death. Who says this and to whom? Why? Answer: the man Bluntschli says this to Raina to express his lifelong gratitude for her noble act of saving his life. Question 72. I'm not a native Serb. Who is the speaker? What is the speaker's identity? Answer: the man Bluntschli is the speaker. Though he is fighting for the Serbs, he is not a Serb by birth. He is a Swiss by birth. Question 73. What kind of soldier is the man Bluntschli who enters Raina's bedroom at night? Answer: he is a professional soldier. Question 74. What is a professional soldier? Answer: a professional soldier is a person who takes soldiering as a profession. He fights for money. Question 75. Why does Raina offer chocolate creams to the man Bluntschli? Answer: when the man Bluntschli tells Raina that he always carries chocolate in the battle instead of cartridges, she offers him chocolate creams out of sympathy. Question 76. What is the difference, according to the man Bluntschli, between the old and young soldiers? Answer: according to the man Bluntschli, the old soldiers carry some food in his revolver case and cartridge box, but the young soldiers carry pistol and cartridges in the battlefield. Question 77. How, according to Bluntschli, can one recognize soldier? Answer: according to Bluntschli, an old soldier can be recognized from the contents of his pistol cases and cartridge boxes where he carries some food. Question 78. Why do the young soldiers carry pistol and cartridges in the battlefield? Answer: the young soldiers have a romantic idea about war. In their early enthusiasm, they carry pistol and cartridges to show heroism in the battlefield. Question 79. Why do the old soldiers carry some food in the battlefield? Answer: the old soldiers carry some food in the battlefield. They are experienced. They know that no hungry soldier can fight in the battlefield. Question 80. I'm as nervous as a mouse. Who is so nervous and why? Answer: Bluntschli is so much nervous because he has been under enemy's firing of guns for 3 days. Question 81. I never saw anything so unprofessional. Who says this, or what is unprofessional to him and why? Answer: Bluntschli says this. The cavalry charge of Sergius against battery of machine guns is very unprofessional to Bluntschli, because if the Serbs had the right ammunitions, the cavalry charges would surely have been killed. Question 82. What is professional to Bluntschli? Answer: it is not professional. No, it is professional not to attack the enemies while they are strong. Question 83. Why does Raina ask Bluntschli to describe the cavalry charge? Answer. Raina asks Blanchely to describe the cavalry charge in order to hear the words of appreciation about Sergius from his mouth. Question 84. How does Blanchely describe the cavalry charge at the request of Raina? Answer. He describes the cavalry charge as a few peas thrown against the glass of a window. Question 85. Who was Don Quixote? Answer. Don Quixote was the romantic hero of the novel of the same name by the Spanish writer Cervantes. He attacked a windmill, taking it a giant. Question 86. Why does Blanchely compare Sergius to Don Quixote? Answer. Blanchely compares Sergius to Don Quixote because Sergius is as foolish as Don Quixote. Don Quixote attacked a windmill, taking it a giant. Sergius led cavalry charge against a battery of machine guns without looking before he leaps. Question 87. Why should, according to Blanchely, Sergius be court-martialed? Answer. Sergius led his cavalry charge against a battery of machine guns, dissolving the military rules, so he should be tried and punished by a military court. Question 88. I can't make you see from the professional point of view. Who says this and to whom? What does the speaker mean here? Answer. The man, Blanchely, who enters Raina's bedroom at night says this to Raina. He means that he has failed to make her understand the cavalry charge made by Sergius from a military point of view. Question 89. It is unsoldierly, but it was angelic. What was unsoldierly and why? Answer. Raina had given 3 chocolate creams to Blanchely. It was unsoldierly because a professional soldier does not feed his enemy but shoots him to death. Question 90. And now I'll do a soldierly thing. What soldierly thing does the speaker want to do? And so the speaker Raina wants to do a soldierly thing, which is to ask Blanchely to leave her room and to climb down the water pipe into the street. Question 91. Why doesn't Raina want to let Blanchely stay in her room? Answer. Raina doesn't want to let Blanchely stay in her room because he has said something insulting about Sergius' cavalry charge. Question 92. Why doesn't Raina let Blanchely get down into the street? Answer. As she heard the sound of shooting in the street, she does not let Blanchely get down into the street for fear of being shot dead. Question 93. Did 10 times over first. Who says this and why? Answer. Blanchely says this. He feels sleepy because of his mental and physical exertion. If he climbs down the water pipe into the street, he will certainly have to encounter death, which is eternal sleep. So he says that death is 10 times better than any mental or physical exertion. Question 94. Why does Blanchely feel sleepy? Answer. Blanchely feels sleepy because of his mental and physical exertion. Besides, he passed 48 sleepless hours. Question 95. How does Raina pride on the Petkov family? Answer. Raina prides on the Petkov family by saying that it is the richest and the best known family in Bulgaria. Question 96. Who was Ernani? Answer. Ernani was the titular hero of an opera of the same name by Giuseppe Verdi, an Italian composer. Question 97. On what condition did Blanchely agree to stay in Raina's room? Answer. Blanchely agreed to stay in Raina's room on the condition that Raina must inform her mother about his presence in her room. Answer. Question 98. Why does Raina call Blanchely a chocolate cream soldier? Answer. Raina sarcastically calls him a chocolate cream soldier because he carried chocolate instead of cartridges in the battlefield. Question 99. Why does Catherine calls Blanchely the brute? Answer. Catherine calls him the brute because she finds him asleep on her daughter's bed. Question 100. Don't mama, the poor darling is worn out. Why says this and who says this and why? Raina says this, finding Blanchely As asleep on Raina's bedroom, Catherine begins to shake him to rouse from his sleep. But Raina wants to let him sleep, so she tells her mother not to rouse him because he is tired. Thank you friends for watching the video.